relationship between resiliency and radical leaders. To provide some context, leaders are very important in our current society. We rely on them to make decisions for us and guide us, and therefore the quality of their leadership is also very important. While many factors go into determining the quality of leadership, one such factor is the beliefs these leaders believe in. And there are many different types of beliefs, and one such type is a radical belief. Radical beliefs believe that preach total social or political change. Because of the importance of beliefs have on how leaders lead and make decisions, we must understand how beliefs can change and how they can be developed. And in this presentation, I will argue that one such way they can be changed is through resilience. And this leads into my question: does resiliency create a more radical leadership? And I will show you why the answer to this is yes. The first major point is that if leaders are too resilient, they can be led to feel overconfident. Resiliency can create negative personalities in leaders, as Tomas Chamorro-Prezumic of Harvard Business Review says, that in the face of seemingly hopeless circumstances, some people tend to resemble a superhero cartoon character that runs through a brick wall, unemotional, fearless, and hyperphagic. As this quote shows, leaders who are experiencing a difficult time and are resilient can sometimes feel as though they can take on the world and feel overconfident. And this overconfidence can lead to a detachment from their peers and subordinates. This detachment can lead to a belief in more radical ideas, as Nancy Lindbergh of the United States Institute of Peace says, that the grievances that fuel radicalization are often exacerbated by an absence of social, peer, and family support. When leaders feel overconfident and become isolated and detached from their peers and subordinates, they can be more susceptible to believe radical ideas. This leads into my second point, which is that when leaders are too resilient during difficult times, their isolation can be manipulated by extreme groups. As the quotes in the previous paragraphs have shown, leaders who are experiencing difficult times and feel overconfident due to their resilience will feel isolated and alone. Extreme groups, or groups who espouse violent radical ideas, can manipulate this. As Megan Ross from the Center of Public Integrity says, that Michael said recruiters from extremist groups target people who believe they've been victimized and shortchanged by society. So that is what we would do, he said, is look for ways people were suffering, look for whatever is wrong in their life, and then try and spin that problem into our narrative and invite them in as a means of addressing this problem. As this quote says, extreme groups will target people who are suffering, such as leaders who have become detached from their peers and feel as though they are alone. As you can see with this graph, talking about sub-pathways of internalization for extremist groups, or how extremist groups convince people to feel as though they belong, they all involve some method of manipulating the person's sense of identity to make them feel as though they belong. Reinforcing this point, the United Kingdom's government says that extremist messages or membership of an extremist group can offer a sense of purpose, community, and identity, which may be appealing, especially if someone's experiencing challenges in their life. Extremist groups will use people who are suffering, such as these leaders, and will convince them as though they belong in these groups and offer a false sense of community to convince them to join and believe these groups' ideas. However, it must be noted that not all radical leaders are bad. One such example of a good radical leader comes from Nelson Mandela's long walk to freedom. As a leader, one must sometimes take actions that are unpopular or whose results will not be known in years to come. These are victories whose glory only lies in the fact that they are known to those who win them. This is particularly true of prison, where one must find consolation in being true to one's ideas, even if no one else knows of it. Nelson Mandela's ideas at the time were considered radical, as they advocated a total social change in South Africa. However, they were good, as they ended a racist system of government. One counterclaim to the points I've made before is that resiliency does not lead to people trying to change, but rather just an attempt to return to normal before struggling. According to the Journal of Health, it says that it describes resiliency as an acceptance of conditions and solidarity demonstrated by Haitians helping Haitians and the resumption of normal activities despite the devastation leveled by the earthquake. As this quote proves the counterclaim, which is that people just, when they are resilient, they just attempt to return to normal and they are not attempting to change. To rebut this, Working Capital Review says that an overvaluing of resilience can cause some people to pursue goals blindly that are unrealistic, unreasonable, and unattainable. Even if people are just simply attempting to return to normal, they can still pursue this goal to unreasonable lengths. And this can lead to the isolation that was referenced before, that can be manipulated by groups with extreme and radical ideas. To bring this back to my question of does resiliency create a more radical leadership, as the presentation I've just given shows, the answer is yes, and the reason for this is the fact that leaders who are too resilient will come to feel overconfident. And this overconfidence will lead to an isolation and a detachment from their peers and subordinates, which can be manipulated by groups with radical and extreme ideas. These groups will manipulate these leaders to believe their ideas and convince these leaders of their beliefs and to implement them in their day-to-day leadership. While not all radical ideas are bad, it is still important to understand how leaders' beliefs can be developed and changed, as we rely on them to make many decisions in our lives, and they also make many major decisions that can govern the course of a whole country, company, or even simply a group of people.